What do you call an introverted hobbit? Shire folk. What's going on, YouTube? The clock has striked 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we're inside the Hollow City, inside of Cold Harbor, to go over our first of 2 weekend vendors. And if you're new or returning, these last until early Monday morning. Now you can buy these Mad pajamas for some gold, and you can resell these to players. We also have a housing contest on the horizon. Last week we had a bunch of orcish stuff. This week we have more orcish stuff. Honestly, it feels like we had the same week again, but I will say, you know me, I love things that are interactable. Are any of these items going to sell well? Probably not in the future, but if you are making an orc-themed house for the upcoming housing contest, go for it, I guess. Obviously you can put these up against a wall. A lot of people use these seals. They kind of lather them around, but not very many people are fans of orcish structures because the orc structures don't last very long. They have a pretty bad history of lasting for periods of time. And as we jump into our second vendor here, also shout out to you, Artemis Gray. We are here. I'll put the message on for a little longer. That was very fast. We are inside of Cyrodiil. Now, if you're ever confused on where these vendors are, how last they long, check out ESOhelper.com. It is our website that breaks down these vendors in more detail, just so that way you guys can have a better idea what's going on if this is the first time you've ever tuned in, because this is actually the video where the most people tune in on for the first time. You talk to this bad man Majama, you get the ability to buy sets and a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know why we were at the bottom there, but we start off with Amber Plasm. Now, this is going to be gold in quality, and some of these are tradable, some of these are not. This one, because it comes from a dungeon, is untradeable. And this actually comes from Runes of Mazatoon, and you can see what it does is very straightforward. Max mag, crit chance, weapon and spell, and then 245 recoveries of each individual type. Now, unfortunately, we live in a day and age where sets like Wretched Vitality exist, and there are even sets like Roxa, which is the monster set that I use, that just put sets like this kind of in the dust. So I would never really suggest using a set like this in 2025. There are people who they're pretty fond of sets like these because it's just stats. There's no procking. What's a proc, Jake? It's when you have to do something to get something. When one of these sets is a proc set, I'll point it out to you. But basically, you just get these stats for free. Problem is, the stats just aren't very high. It still is like a 7 out of 10 set. Obviously, it's not in the 8, 9 or staple tier because you have your Wretcheds, your Roxas. I mean, even those monster sets that just give you like 100 and some odd recovery are literally half of the 5-piece that you see here. So not super good, but it does still have some niche utilization in the good tier. 7 out of 10. Next up is from Blessed Crucible. Here we go. Here's a proc set. When you block, you gain a stack of Nicholas's Resolve. So you're doing something to get something. That's a proc set. Up to once every half seconds. After 8 stacks, you can zoom all of the resolve and deflect the next direct damage attack made against you within 5 meters. This set is actually changed from its original shaping. It used to just be a flat 25% chance to reflect the spell back to the enemy, which I'm sure was a coding nightmare. But I also think sets like these are just, I mean, what do you do with this? You have to use it for PvP. Is there some niche PvE utilization where you could give yourself a bajillion health, live in attack, and then reflect like 100k damage back at a boss? But even if you did do that, that's still not that good a DPS considering how much weird jankiness you're having to do so, and you're not giving out a support 5-piece set to boost all your DPS allies. So unfortunately, there's some way that you probably could jank a set like this, but the juice ain't worth the squeeze. 6 out of 10. And it comes from Blessed Crucible, in case I forgot to mention that. So this is a dungeon set. Next up, we have Way of Fire, which is interesting because a lot of people pin this in 2 separate categories. See, usually it's easy to discern, is this a PvE set? Is this a PvP set? Like, what's its best utilization? And 9 times out of 10, that's relatively straightforward. Way of Fire is interesting because it's both a PvP set and a PvE set. Why is that, Jake? Well, a lot of people like to be able to light and heavy attack for solo content. It's very easy for resource sustain, and it's really easy to build around. Just building around making your light and heavy attacks do oogles amounts of damage. Very straightforward. But you also find Way of Fire being really good for sorks and or just dueling sets in general, because essentially you're able to pepper in some light and heavy attacks every 2 seconds and deal significant amounts of flame damage. And because of that, this is a really popular set. I would almost even argue that it's a staple set. I don't necessarily know that if I'm comfortable listing it as a staple set because it'll make the comments really angry. So I'm going to give this a 9.9. I think as the Sorks come down from their S plus tier status with all the nerfs and update 46, Way of Fire will also be going the way of the cold. I don't know where I'm going with this. And we'll drop back down from its 10 out of 10 pedestal to like a 9.9 out of 10 pedestal. A lot of people suggested this set for Sorks to, to build little scumbag dueling Sorks that streak around and deal crazy amounts of burst and then flutter away on their little streaking things. So it's either a 10 or a 9.9. I love this set. Should you buy it? It's not super hard to get Craglorn jewelry, considering just how long the zone's been out. It is not as easy as some zones, like it's not as easy as like the Alakir Desert, for example. But I would generally just suggest that you buy this because it comes from an overland zone. You could buy this and trade it. Not necessarily worth doing that, except maybe if you play on PC, because PC inflation is significantly different. And even then, it's probably not the greatest investment. Next up's another overland set. When you cast a damage shield, you call down a fragment of Trinimac himself that heals you and your group for 73.99 health and damages enemies for 71.57 magic damage in a 5-meter radius. After a 2-second delay, this effect could occur once every 5 seconds. So this is a out of focus camera here. This is one of those sets that's kind of a relic of the past, where it used to be sets that, just healed people were really good. Healers used to run sets like Trinimac because healing was good. You got a little damage off as a bonus. The problem is that healers, this might sound crazy, don't necessarily need to focus on healing you as much. They're a bit more focused on giving you buffs that kill everything faster and then just keeping you minimally alive. And kind of going from there. So really, we're having different goals than we used to have. There's no point in overhealing your allies, keeping them topped off on health. It's better to kill things quicker 99% of the time, and then you don't have to worry about as many mechanics. You don't need to heal them as long because everything's dead. That's just a pretty easier way to do things. That's why we've kind of shifted healing a bit from the days when the set came out. It's an overland set from Rothgar, one of the first DLC zones. Still not good. 6 out of 10. Next up, we have our 2 dungeon sets. Now, this is going to be Tremor Scale 1-piece stamina. When you activate a taunt ability on an enemy, you cause a Dune Ripper to burst beneath the ground. Then after 1 second, dealing 51-52 physical damage with it to all enemies within 4 meters, and you reduce their armor by 1170 for 15 seconds. This effect could occur once every 10 seconds. You might be thinking to yourself, Jake, where does this kind of fall then? We are reducing a little bit of stuff on our enemies here. Is that worth it? Well, kind of. A set like this is perfectly serviceable as a tank set. I believe when people were really big on like heavy attacking a lot, this was something that was necessary because people didn't have as much penetration as they do now. But out of a heavy attacking meta, sets like these aren't as good because you don't really need to worry about reducing the armor of your enemies as much. You certainly could use a set like this for PvP, but like it's dodgeable, it's minimal armor reduction, be a little bit goofy. So as a tanking set, it's probably like an 8 out of 10, but granted, it comes from Vollenfell. Just go farm Vollenfell on Veteran, get this thing for free. Very niche situations where it might come up, but you got to put it in the great tier. I mean, if it has niche utilizations in some content, you got to at least say that it's great, even if it's pretty narrow in scope what it's doing. Next up for Moonhunter Keep, one of the very first dungeons that I remember failing with my friends because we don't have thumbs and only some of us grew them later in life. Now, Vakuza is an interesting set because it's similar to the last set we looked at. You get adds 4% healing taken, but then when you bash an enemy you've taunted, you frighten them with a deafening howl, applying major cowardice to them, lowering their weapon and spell damage by 430 for 8 seconds. Now, quite a lot of problems with this. One, how often are you trying to keep your party alive per se? Because, when you reduce the armor of a boss, you're letting it die quicker. Granted, there are probably some utilizations that I just can't think of off the top of my head where something is almost livable and now it's like, oh, now your DPS can definitely live it. Maybe if you're trying to do some like safe 4-man content, trying to farm, hard modes and whatnot. But even then, you're probably more focused on sets that just provide you a bunch of sets like shields. So that way you can get around mechanics that way, because very few one-shot mechanics are not going to be one-shot mechanics by applying major cowardice to them, because even though it's called major cowardice, it'd be 430 weapon and spell damage to a boss with like buku's amounts of health. Not really going to be super scared, even though it's majorly scared. So probably not a set that you need, and you can buy it, or you can farm it by farming Moonhunter Keep on Veteran, which granted is kind of annoying, especially if you're trying to random queue into it, but it's not one that I think you need to own, even though it's a tanking set. And I generally support people buying support sets, because if you ever wanted to, use Tremor Scale in the future and you didn't want to have to go farm it, one day, granted, now you've already got it. You don't have to go farm Vollenfeld, but granted, if you are practicing to be a support character, you should be farming dungeons. So all sorts of dialogue I have in my head when it comes to these sets. But overall, that is the sets this weekend. So Way of Fire was the real standout for this week as our quick TLDR. And here it is in its golden PC glory. So it averages 205,000 gold being sold at its golden quality. And you'll remember that it's pretty much being sold for 125,000. So if you wanted to convert your AP to gold and you played on PC, maybe. But it's important to remember, too, that this is not a crazy amount of sample time. And you can see that the price fluctuates on this pretty significantly. So granted, it seems like it has gone up, in past times. But you can see this is a pretty big downward trend, because I think people are projecting the Sorc meta to be kind of going the way of the fire. And you can see the actual supply and listing and sales has been pretty minimal. You're not seeing a whole lot of sales throughout time. This doesn't capture everything on the market, but I just wanted to point this out because people were like, oh, Jake, like you said, it's good to purchase on PC. What does that mean? Oh, well, it's 125,000 gold and it's 200,000 gold on the market. This must mean it's an instant investment. Well, you can see that the market trajectory has not been kind to this bad boy. So I just want to take some time. All of these resources are linked below, but it's still a really fun set. If you have AP and you just want to have a really good PvP set, the Way of the Fire could be for you, because it is an expensive one to have. If you do have gold, you are going to have to pay a premium to get it. And I think generally you want to have the jewelry for it anyway. So thank you guys so much again for watching. As always, we're doing our 3 giveaway drawings. All you need to do to enter is leave a comments below / like on the video. Second thing is just make sure you're subscribed. I think we're like 5 subs away from our next 100 sub goal. So please hit the subscribe button. And finally, look for hidden word be flashed upon the screen. If you're the first person to find and comment that word, you will win. There is 1 word every single month. So there's 1 word for the month of May. However, for the month of June, every single video in the month of June will have a hidden word on it. If you're the first person to find and get it, you will get a giveaway code. Debating on if I want to give people unlimited entries. I obviously want to have people keep, joining the video very quickly. So I don't know. If you have thoughts on that, link it below, because I don't want to keep giving the same people stuff if they already have it. So thank you guys again, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.